Hello, welcome to episode 29 of Personality Typing with Habib. Today we're going to be typing Pam Bondi, who is or was the well, she's a former U.S. Attorney General who worked for Trump, but she previously worked for the state of Florida, I believe, as Attorney General. And this is going to be a dark edition. This is not someone I like. This is someone I think has some negative characteristics, but on some level they're trying to do a job, and they're doing the job in a way that is not really aligned with any set of values that I recognize as being okay. And it's yeah, I mean, that's for everyone to judge on their own, but I thought it'd be good to not only study personality but see how it manifests in people, in not just the light patterns in the positive ways but also the negative ways, right? Speaking of which, we have a comment from Austin saying, "Ooh, keep them coming. I'm curious to know Kash Patel's, Todd Blanche, Christy Nome's personalities too. All them sewer monsters." Totally agree, Austin. And yeah, completely. Like, because we're all prone to, negative traits, or negative manifestations of our traits. And we want to understand how to, not go there, not go the dark path, the Darth Vader way, right? And so it'll be a learning experience for everyone. And everyone can also transform. If Pam Bondi is watching this, maybe take a lesson or two from this, and go towards the light rather than staying in darkness. Anyway, so the disclaimer is that no type accuracy guarantees. Pam Bondi is someone who had been protecting the Epstein perpetrators, the alleged people in the Epstein files. And so in this episode, we're going to be doing a quick recap on the previous one, and then we're going to go into the clips of what Pam Bondi's personality type might be. We're going to analyze some of the things that she's done in public, and then we're going to do a final guess of Pam Bondi's type, to talk a little bit about some of these hairy issues, but not getting too deep into that either. So I'll be leaving links of the videos so people can go do further watching if they want. But I'm also just trying to stay focused on the personality type aspect of this, right? Because, we need to, be productive in our days and kind of move on. But we also need to address these things as appropriately as we can, and, not shy away from negative stories. And then the last thing, we're just going to do a next episode preview. That's pretty quick. So without further ado, let's get into it. So previously on personality typing, we had Abdul El Sayed. This dude is doing really well in the polls right now. Democratic primary in Michigan. It's not about left, right. It's about actually having politicians that do work. Like, I'm in New York City, where Zoran Mamdani is doing a lot of good work. And yeah, I mean, the hope is that someone like Abdul El Sayed can do good things for people rather than giving money to foreign countries, where he had a really good argument about when it comes to Israel stuff. He says he has an Egyptian background, and he says don't give money to Egypt either. Don't give military aid to anyone, any of the foreign countries. I thought that was a very good universal way to talk about this. Is that, yeah, anyway. But type-wise, I did change from blast, play, consume, sleep last to blast, play, sleep. I'm not exactly super confident about that change, but one of the things I see him doing consistently is getting people to repeat his three catchphrases for his slogans for his political campaign. And that just reminded me so much of Joe Dispenza, which feels a little bit like a consume last thing to do. I'm not sure. He does have a good amount of consume, I feel, but I thought the same with someone like Zoran Mamdani. Was like, just because you're consume last doesn't mean you know nothing. You know things. You do know things. It's just, you may not redo everything all the time and go back to the drawing board as much. But he's very good at rallying people. So anyway, that's the reasoning behind the change from blast, play, consume to blast, play, sleep. It feels a lot more energy dumb. It feels like he's able to get people rallied and excited towards a direction. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm still seeing the number 2, and that's really good. Getting the people together. It's tribe motivated, and it's also goal oriented with the generalist, where they're able to look at certain big picture things. Not that, you know, everyone's able to do that. But anyway, ESFJ, it's interesting to see an EJ man do some good stuff, you know. There's not that many out there. But speaking of EJs, you know, that is my first impression for our person here. I'm not going to say my buddy because it's not really a buddy. It's yeah, you know, whose friend is she? She seems to be very much friends with Trump and a lot of that administration. And yeah, and there's a lot of corruption there. So the first impression is that she reminds me of some kind of EJ, specifically ENTJ. You know, there are the blast first EJs that are more focused and controlled, and then there are the kind of like, I don't want to say sloppy ones, but they're more channel changing, more. It almost feels like they're aware of more things. The play first EJs, and she strikes me as someone who is more on the play first side because she is able to take in a lot more information from a lot more sources than I would expect. So I'm reminded a bit of Annie Duke, Pamela Anderson, and Jada Pinkett Smith. Yeah, just vibe wise. Oh, I totally did not update this part, so you can ignore that. They're not blast, play, consume, sleep. But yeah, I'm also reminded of EJs in general, like the ENTJs, as well as just EJs in general. Because you see the finger wagging, you know, that comes standard with the EJ package. And there's some things that I'm seeing with respect to the ST, that she's pulling up information, pulling up stats that don't matter. Like, you know, we're going to get into the clip with the Dow being over 50,000. You know, that's a famous one that went around, at least for people that know this kind of thing and are informed on the topics. But anyway, without further, you know, presumptions, we're going to get into the actual interview clips. Now, I only have 5 videos today for Pam Bondi, which is good because I don't want it to go too long, and I don't have like an A/B for this one, so they'll be pretty short. But the thing is, like, yeah, like I did a lot more watching outside of this. I'm not going to include everything here, so we can just kind of see, you know. So it's going to be very targeted today with the interview clips. But yeah, feel free to do further watching on your own. But yeah, in this first clip, we're going to be just getting to know Pam Bondi. She's going to be talking about Tulsi Gabbard. And you're going to see the DE right off the bat, you know, the frog in the pocket. And it's, you can even see in the title, we're inseparable. What a thing to say. So not only DE, but are you also seeing EJ as well? Are you able to, you know, join me in this impression that I have? But we'll see. We'll see.
If I may, there seems to be a little confusion with DNI Gabbard was down in Atlanta last week for the Fulton County search. Originally, this office said that she was not part of the investigation. She put in a letter to Congress that President Trump directed her to do so. And then now President Trump yesterday said that it was at your insistence that she went down there. So what is the case here?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. It's that's interesting because DNI Gabbard and I are inseparable. We are constantly together, as are the people behind us. We constantly talk, we collaborate as a cabinet. We're all extremely close, know what each other, what we're doing at all times, pretty much, to keep not only our country safe, but our world safe. And she was down there with Deputy Director Andrew Bailey of the FBI. And that's, I'm not going to talk about any other details of that matter right now because Georgia's a very important issue to us. She was there. We're inseparable. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
All right. I got to stop it. I'm cringing too hard. The whole inseparable thing, like she said it twice. I didn't even finish the clip when I originally grabbed this one. But like, that's a weird phrase. It's like, what do you mean you're inseparable? Inseparable. You're over, I think, 60 years old. Anyway, whatever. But like, this is strange language. Like, who talks like this? And the people behind me, like, we're together all the time. I think there's a way to say it. I understand what she's saying. Like, we're a team and it's important to show a united front. That's great. But I just feel like the terminology, it just gets a little extra based on our natural traits, our natural type, like what we feel allowed to say. Like as an EP, I'm going to always talk about freedom. There's nothing to be shy about with that, you know? But for her as an EJ, she's very much not shy about saying, hey, we're inseparable. That's a little, it made me a little nervous there. It's just screaming codependency. Not that I don't have those issues too from time to time. But yeah, anyway, so that's a lot of DE there. And then in clip 2, because we have more clips, right? Don't worry, you'll get there. In terms of being able to see the different types and traits come up. So that's the point of watching these. And we're getting different angles, right? So this is from much earlier. This is when Pam Bondi's a bit younger, and in terms of like, she tried doing some actual work with bath salts, you know, in Florida. You know, Florida is a crazy place. So from my understanding, I don't know, that's what I hear, right? I'm from New York and people say things about New York. But anyway, let's see. Is she able to double observe? Like, how is she looking out for these people who are on bath salts and doing the drugs or doing whatever? And then there's going to be a little moment there to see the flex side. Let's check it out.
It's a bath salt issue. And I said, what are bath salts? And I prosecuted for 20 years. And we started looking at it, and you know, kids were overdosing left and right. It's a hallucinogenic and it's deadly. And so I said, what can I do?
And they were called bath salts, but they really aren't bath salts.
No, they're not bath salts. They're in a packet about the size of a sugar packet, and it sells between $34 and $44. And it's a hallucinogenic, and it's right up there with cocaine and heroin. And kids were overdosing left and right. And in the Panhandle, they were scared to death because spring break was coming. And one of the side effects is you think you can fly. And they were scared to death about the kids and the balconies and spring break. So they said, what can you do? And as Attorney General, you know, people call it power, but I call it responsibility. By signing my name, I can make a substance illegal for 90 days. And so I looked at this, and that's where my experience as a prosecutor certainly came in. FDLE was great. I called Commissioner Bailey. He was in my office in an hour with all the lab results. Sheriff McKeithen drove over from the Panhandle. He was great. And we looked at everything, and it was frightening. And so we knew we had to get this stuff off the shelves.
Okay, great. So she handled the situation, but how does she do it? There's some we talk in there. You know, you see the double observing, the, you know, getting involved, and then also the signing of the name and the power responsibility is like, all right, you're making this a little decider weird. You're not scared about the observer game. You're scared about the, hey, like I have a role in this, you know, what can I do? And that's an interesting thing about deciders is that they really only look at issues that they can solve, that they have power to change or not. They're not wasting time with situations that they have nothing to do with, you know. And for myself as an observer, like we like to see too many of these situations that have nothing to do with us, but she was in that position, you know, in Florida to deal with the bath salts. So that is a good thing to take away. But the whole signing your name, that's a sign for flex. The double observing, we're seeing it. So, you know, if someone like this is not just going to be the U.S. Attorney General without any level of competence. They have competence. They're able to solve this problem. But that's what makes it even more tragic, that when you're given a role and responsibility of dealing with the Epstein files, when you're failing there, it's not because you're not competent. It's because you're choosing to be a prick. You're choosing to ignore the survivors and the victims in that situation. And I appreciate this comment here about the first impressions that I showed, because I didn't have the text on the slide. But yeah, they're all FM and they're all play, consume, sleep, last. So I appreciate that, Joe. And then, yeah, we're going to go to the next clip. And yeah, that is, you know, kind of the direction I'm going in with Pam Bondi. So, you know, it might not be exactly right. So feel free to keep an open mind as to what her animals are and what her modality is. But the main thing I really want to prove with these clips is the whole EJ thing. The EJ, and then possibly play first, specifically with this clip, So this one, we're actually going to be getting into the Dow being over 50,000 because it's a pretty irrelevant clip when it comes to the Epstein files. Why is she mentioning this? Like, what is this? Like, when you have no cards left to play, when all your team is probably getting blackmailed and you're probably not allowed, like, that's the case. Like, that's the only way really to read the situation. Pam Bondi, for some reason, is not allowed to do the work of having any level of transparency over the Epstein files. Like, she's clearly just not doing her job and trying to come up with an excuse. So what kind of excuse is she coming up with? Happens to be the stock market. Let's check it out.
This administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million, and Donald Trump signed that law to release all of those documents. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. And none of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
The committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman.
All right, yeah, and this Jim Jordan dude, I don't like that dude either. Who happened to be the chair, which might have led to some of that non-transparency. But yeah, the Dow being over 50,000, like, she knows it has nothing to do with, so she's gonna call out people who are calling her out, and that's one of the situations. Is like when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, which, you know, is just the immoral position, and she, for some reason, feels like she's forced to be in this evil position of protecting the Epstein folks, the Epstein network, and just ignoring the survivors and all that. Like, she feels the need to do that, and she's deflecting with, the idea of the stock market. This is not even that much. I was going to pull up the graphs for it. Yeah, the stock market's up, but like, it's not by that much. If you're like doubling your money over 5 years or something like this, like, how much does that really do, and who is that really helping? It's not most people, and most people are not like heavily invested in the stock market. Like, I totally understand why people might be happy about the stock market, but the vast majority of people, which is like 99% or 90+%, is not going to be benefiting that much. And even if you do, there's inflation that couples with it. Anyway, the point is, I'm getting caught by the observer deflection that she's doing. And yeah, the 50,000 over, Dow, that's like, imagine you're at a funeral or you're in a hospital and you're talking about the Dow. Like, when it comes to human grief and, cases of sexual assault, things like this, like, bringing up the Dow is totally irrelevant. And for some reason, she feels emboldened to, and I think the fault is also with Jim Jordan or whoever, I don't know, but the government is clearly just not able to get this under control and have her do any real work. Like, compare this with the bath salt situation, where she's actually protecting someone who's like dealing with drugs or whatever. But in this case, she's not protecting anyone. She's just talking about the stock market. So it's really a shame. That's supposed to be the Department of Justice, supposed to be the U.S. Attorney General. And yeah, it's pretty sad. But people had a lot of fun with it that's all you can do sometimes, is make comedy. But things are really, screwed up. Things are really, really screwed up. And just making jokes about it is not going to be that good either. But as I say that, this next clip is going to be about some jokes. So yeah, there's a certain burn book that she has that, when she's in these courtrooms or whatever, well, I don't know exact terminology, but she was bringing up a burn book of like just insulting the people who are questioning her. And so these comedians are making fun of her. But yeah, she's also shuffling papers, and I read that as some ST. But anyway, let's take a look.
I guess the answer, Tom Homan took that money. Now, of all the clips that we've shown you so far of Pam Bondi, have y'all noticed something interesting at all about how she prepares before she answers each question?
She'd be shuffling them papers like 3-card Monte. Yeah.
Do you look more or less prepared when you shuffle through papers before answering a question?
I liked it. Every time she shuffled the papers, I really thought she's gonna find what she's looking for. That's great.
Pam Bondi was shuffling and shuffling. Please just watch. That's how I'd be at Cheesecake Factory. I'd just be turning pages and turning pages. You're preparing to go before Congress and go, yes, I will tell you the truth. What would you put in your folder?
You know, I doodle, so it's probably gonna be like a bunch of hearts, you know, flowers, and then
picture of the notes. And they were basically just cheat sheets listing mean things to say to the senators. Baby, hold on, what's your name? Let me get to your shit real quick.
Yeah, I'll stop the clip there. But yeah, there's basically a burn book. Like if you actually, you know, and I'll put the links to all these videos so you can see the rest of this comedy segment. But yeah, the burn book is kind of like a decider thing, right? She's just insulting everyone who's questioning her rather than answering the questions. So, you know, hiding the missing information, not playing the observer game. You're just playing the decider game. Why would you do that? Why would you feel like it's okay to do that? Maybe if you are a decider, you think the decider game is the only real game in town, or at least you're going to be pushing with that. And then the shuffling of the papers, I do read that as ST. You know, I have my own papers. Like anytime I'm going to a meeting or having a conversation with someone, I feel the need to like have papers, because that way you have something solid in reality to deal with. And I feel like that's what she's using. That's her comfort blankie. And then I wanted to say about the previous one as well as this one, it's like this is a person we're witnessing who is selling their soul, basically. Like the juxtaposition between the way that she dealt with the bath salts, maybe she did something good there, with what she was doing more recently as a US AG. You know, you sold your soul, and when you do that, like that's really bad. Like you're kind of screwed from the inside out, and you can kind of see it on the face too. But yeah, just deflecting with the stock market, having this burn book, you're not a serious person. But it also reflects the state of United States as well as the Trump administration, because this is, you know, reflecting on Trump, of course, because him and his friends are implicated in the Epstein files. Trump's name is mentioned a lot. And rather than redacting the victims' names or the survivors' names, they're redacting only the perpetrators, the abusers' names, who are, you know, in those higher positions. And basically, America has lost its moral high ground because they're not really able to take anyone to account. Actually, even UK, you know, England was able to take people to account, including Prince Andrew, as well as some other dude, Mandelson something. But America, United States of America, has not arrested a single person, even though there are probably hundreds or at least tens of people who are seriously implicated, where there is a lot of evidence, photo, video, and all this. I've seen enough from that too. So this is the last main clip that I have with Pam Bondi, and she's basically failing the decider game. It is the only game she's playing, and so she's going to be failing at it, where people are going to ask you know, the survivors to answer some questions, and it just looks bad because Pam Bondi can't even turn around and look at them or offer any reasonable response.
Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche
You can't go off script.
said that any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so, hopefully. Well, thanks to the incredibly brave people sitting here behind you, we can actually ask them if that's true. Now, would the survivors and victims who are here please stand up one more time? Just by show of hands, how many of you or your loved ones actually have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and estimate and evidence? None. And of those of you who have not met, which is everyone, how many of you have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence? All of them. And of those all of you who have reached out, how many of you were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them. And despite the shameful and despicable efforts by Ms. Bondi and her department to intimidate you, how many of you are still willing to speak to the Department of Justice? All of them. Well, Ms. Bondi, it looks like you have some more witnesses to talk to.
Gentleman's time has expired.
And I yield back.
We will go to the good gentleman from North Carolina, Congressman Knott. Thank you.
No, you may not say whatever bullshit you're going to spew. So, yeah, basically failing the decider game. It's probably nothing that good. Actually, you know what? Let's listen to whatever she has to say. It's probably nothing good. You know, there are these people who have survived crazy amounts of things, you know, horrible situations. What does Pam Bondi have to say? It'll probably be a deflection. Let's see.
Have a moment, Congressman.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Here we go.
All right. So it should basically change the topic, right? So, and yeah, I'll include the clip so you can watch the rest of that if you want. But basically, you know, Pam Bondi fails the decider game. She fails the vibe check. She's not vibing with anybody here. It's basically not able to defend survivors. Like, that's your job as a U.S. Attorney General. And yeah, she's not doing it. So anyway, you know, I guess everyone knows this. I mean, common sense basically wins, and there's not really much to add on that. It's just like a shame, and the situation for the United States is that you have that much injustice. And if these people cannot be protected in the highest courts, in the highest levels, then, you know, what protection is there for anyone in the United States? And yeah, people should know. And so that's why I'm including this bonus clip here to hear a little bit from the survivors. But I'm not going to go too long on this, just for the sake of keeping this video short. But I'm going to include the link in the description so people can follow up. But I think it's good to hear from the people who actually went through this stuff, because they're very brave. They're providing as much evidence as they can. They're pretty much going above and beyond. So they're kind of the opposite of Pam Bondi. So balance out some of the dark energy here with this.
Act alone. And I think that we now have more evidence of that from what we've seen in the files. And what is really difficult for me to wrap my head around is I met Epstein and Maxwell when I was 21. I'm almost 53 now. And I was just raised differently. I was raised to respect our government. I was raised to be able to speak to people of different political parties. And maybe I don't always agree with them, but their insights help me shape my opinions. And I just don't see that happening. And that's what I grew up in. That's the America that I grew up in. And for us to now feel like the Department of Justice, which is in charge of seeking justice for all Americans who are victims of crime, they've just completely let us down. And so to hear her say, if you have been a victim of crime, we want you to call the FBI. I called the FBI. I called the FBI, and in the release of files, my intake report was released twice, once with my part of my address, and once where my name was unredacted several times, including in a sentence that said, Stein was a victim of Epstein and Maxwell in the mid-90s. So I find it really difficult to have any faith when we are constantly, you know, being manipulated and down.
Yeah, so it's hard to have faith in the government and all this when they're failing such basic things. And yeah, so it's good to hear from them. And there's other clips, I think around 11 minutes that I wanted to show, but I'm probably not going to. Yeah, this part is good as well. But yeah, I'm kind of concerned a little bit about the copyright. Sometimes the video gets screwed up and I can't even show it in the video anyway. But before we narrow down the guests, I just want to say that, yeah, I mean, it's important to hear from the survivors themselves. These people, they kind of lost their right to anonymity when their names are not redacted from the files. So rather than, showing the names of the people who are the abusers, they showed the name of the people who are the victims, right? And you call them survivors because, yeah, they've been through a lot. And they're basically fighting for their life too. And Virginia Giuffre, however you say that name, like, she lost her life, and who knows how that happened really. And yeah, I mean, the Epstein files are something that the government doesn't really want people to talk about, or certain people don't want to talk about, including the Trump administration and things. But we need to get to the bottom of this, or else we basically lose the country. We lose rights. And yeah, got to be a watchdog on that and figure out how to continue advocating for justice. If the Department of Justice doesn't have justice, then how are we really doing as a country? But anyway, time to narrow down the guests. Of course, there is a lot. There's even a podcast that Pam Bondi did with Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, I think is the name. But it was kind of gross, like, to include something like that. It's too lighthearted. And she went over her makeup routine, which I understand as a, someone who's aging, maybe that's something that's super important for her. But it showed a different side of her, but it's very shallow, and I'm happy to not include that here. So, but I'm using that also to judge the type. Let's get on with it. So narrowing down the guests. So we see all the types here, right? And the first narrow down for Pam Bondi is that I'm seeing EJ, specifically TE. Now, maybe she's an FEEJ and I just missed it, but from what I'm seeing, it's TE. It's not an IJ. She's not hiding in some hole somewhere as an IJ. She is hiding, trying to hide, but she's hiding behind a burn book, right? And finger pointing and missing the vibe. I don't know. So I'm seeing TE, judging, and possibly, if she is, ENTJ or ESTJ, that she has that lawyer background. The high NT is going to allow you to navigate the law in a creative and intellectual way, and all this. So one of the other things is that the first narrow down is decider, DE, thinker, so ETJ. And then the next narrow down is play above sleep. That doesn't eliminate too much, but I am looking at the social type as well. I'm seeing number 1, I'm seeing FM, and without getting too much into that, it's it's just my guess, right? The number 1, I did include that clip about signing your name, and you'll see certain things here and there. And then the final narrow down is consume over blast, as well as ST. That's a pretty big jump, and I might have eliminated the type there. Maybe the type was one of those other types, who knows? But from what I'm seeing is that she does have consume. She has a little bit of a frog face. She has a little bit of a, taking in information. Like I said, she had a makeup routine that I'm not showing here, and certain things like she tries to take care of herself. She talked about like grocery shopping and whatnot, and it doesn't seem like she's missing, self-care is what I was seeing. And yeah, that's my narrow down, and my final guess is basically ENTJ jumper. Although other versions of ENTJ are possible, I'm seeing, the FM, TESE, play, consume, sleep, blast, last, number 1, which is what my first impressions lined up. Like, there are just so many women of this type, but they don't always go this dark. It's not always this way. It's not always this unhealthy. And I feel like there's a lot from her history, her life history and personal history that we don't know. Like, I feel like something happened to this person where you see in this image, she's just ignoring these survivors. But to the extent that she's ignoring these survivors, I really feel like she's ignoring herself, her own inherent value as a person, and just the inherent value that any American or non-American child has when they're subjected to the abuse of people either in the Epstein network or in general. It's not just people. This whole case is much bigger than the Epstein files themselves. There's abuse across the board that people, men and women face throughout the world, throughout this country and other countries, that people are looking at America like, do you guys have your shit together? And apparently not. So some alternate guesses for Pam Bondi's type. I am sticking with ENTJ. That's what I'm seeing the strongest, is just that 16 personality archetype of, it's kind of like the caricature of the 16 personality type. You look up an ENTJ, I feel like you'll see someone like Pam Bondi, but of course she's gone the Darth Vader path, of screwing people over. But I'm also seeing a possibility for maybe play, consume, blast, sleep, last. Maybe another animal stack is possible. I also included the TENI version as a wild guess, but I'm not really going to go in that direction because the number one is doing a lot of work on her blast. Like, she's able to offer those, bullshit excuses with the 50K. The Dow is over 50,000. Like, what is this? It's such a weak argument that I don't know how she got out of bed that morning and decided that whatever she said was a valid excuse for, being a failure. There is no valid excuse for being this much of a failure. And Pam Bondi is, it's a dark lesson, at least of the past. If I were to talk to her now, I'd just say, hey, you should consider changing and reflecting and taking some accountability. Because it was the ultimate deflection between the burn book and the Dow. She was not taking any personal accountability. And that is the dark path, is when you look at the mirror and you just decide to blame everybody else, and you don't blame yourself for, the faults that you're actually responsible for, and I feel like these people, they can do better. It's not intellectualism that holds them back. It's not intelligence that holds these people back. It's morality. And that's what I'm basically doing with this light versus dark series. Like, we're typing these dark people because they're not fucking stupid. They're actually smart, but they're immoral, and that matters, and so anyway, that's what the signal versus noise is, right? I've been including this slide for the past few videos. But yeah, basically pay attention to the signal. The signal is not that the Dow is over 50,000. The signal is that, we're losing any sense of justice in the United States and probably across the world as well. And the noise is, random news about the Dow or the stock market, where the real floor that we've had in society is falling out from under us. And then, yes, 16 personalities wise, like, I'm seeing ENTJ, and there's healthy, unhealthy versions of this. So while there are so many people of this specific 512 type, or even 2048, like, there are ways to go positively, there's ways to go negatively. And just because you have a skincare routine does not mean you're going to be in the healthy version. That's the wrong kind of health. You want health of the spirit. I like these strengths and weaknesses, being impatient with others or seeming cold or arrogant. Like, these are the negative sides of an unhealthy ENTJ. And then on the positive side, you can be the strategic thinker. You can inspire others. You can be a visionary and strategic. So that's why it's such a shame what Pam Bondi's done with her life. Yeah, I mean, I hope better for these people, and I'm including some credits here. There's these images are from Instagram, apparently. I mean, I Googled it, but then found who did it. But yeah, every type has healthy and unhealthy versions, and we can ourselves be in different places at different times in our life. Speaking of which, in 2 weeks, we're going to be typing someone who has gone through her own transformation. Anna Kasparian. She's someone who has been very progressive at first and then kind of went through some things and then became very independent minded. Like, at least she, has very new thoughts, isn't really just aligning with whatever is the latest and loudest anymore. And she is coming up with her own ideas. She was with the Young Turks as a political commentator, journalist, and media host. But she's very outspoken, and I think a light or a positive example of, spoiler, but she's some kind of NTJ, not too far away from Pam Bondi's type, not too far away, a little bit. But I think it's a good one to go over because I wanted to share like a positive episode on a female, on a woman, because getting a negative one, like, I'm just, all right, let's balance it out here and double decide. And yeah, I mean, there's this podcast here with Anna Kasparian. I might be looking at that one as well. At least include a clip of that. And yeah, I mean, she's able to talk about things like the Epstein files or the genocide in Gaza. And she's doing a good job with that. Okay, I think, yeah, dark episode there. I did not mean to put that part. And yeah, the slides might not be perfectly done, but she has dark and light sides too. Everyone does, right? So we'll get to address both sides of it. Like, even for Pam Bondi, like, there's a moment where she maybe did some work that had some level of competence, but now she's, and this happens to all of us, whether you're intelligent or not. You could find yourself working for someone who's good. You could find yourself working for someone who's evil. And then you have to make that decision of how much do you want to let yourself get corrupted by all this? What do they have on you? What kind of blackmail do they have on you that you're going to be selling your soul for this? And I would say it's not worth it to sell your soul. I look forward to the next episode in 2 weeks with Anna Kasparian. Yeah, not too different of a type. And yeah, take care. It was great to type this person. And there's a link in the description for one-on-one coaching. Feel free to do that. Yeah, take care.